Greetings, everyone. This is Robert Landau, Live Life Well TV host, and we have got another episode of a popular trivia show here on Live Life Well TV that we call True or False. Are you ready? Well, if you are, I am too. Stay tuned. All right, let's start with the first question. True or false, something called an endoscope is used to examine if the intestines are functioning properly. That first question again is true or false. Something called an endoscope is used to examine if the intestines are functioning properly. What do you think, true or false? That happens to be true, and here's why. An endoscope, if you don't already know, happens to be a long, thin, flexible tube that also has a light and camera at one end and is used to look deep into the body. Next up is this, true or false? A female seahorse carries eggs. True or false, a female seahorse carries eggs? That is false. And here is why. A male seahorse actually carries eggs, although he doesn't make them. The female seahorse deposits her eggs inside the male's pouch. He fertilizes the eggs inside the pouch. So there you go. Bet you didn't know that. I don't think too many people do. And with that in mind, here's the next true or false question. Goes like this. True or false, elephants are the largest land animals in the world. True or false, elephants are the largest land animals in the world? What do you think? That happens to be true. And good for you if you got that correct. Here's another one. See if you get this correct, true or false. Osteology, which is spelled O-S-T-E-O-L-O-G-Y. Osteology is the study of blood. True or false? Osteology is the study of blood. What do you think about that one? That happens to be false. Osteology is the study of bones and is a subdiscipline of anatomy, anthropology, and paleontology. It involves the study of the structure of bones. So there you go. Make no bones about it. Next up, true or false? Minsk is the capital of Belarus. True or false? Minsk is the capital of Belarus. What do you think about that one? True or false? Let me hear you loud and clear. That happens to be, drum roll please. That happens to be true. Minsk is the most developed city in Belarus with a population of no less than 2.2 million inhabitants. Next up is this, true or false? A group of gorillas is known as a band. A group of gorillas is known as a band. True or false? What do you think about that? That happens to be true. True. Gorillas live in groups called troops or a band. They are led by a dominant male that is called a silverback. Silverbacks can be intensified in their nature because they are leaders, but they can also be identified by a gray strip of hair on their backs. Bet you didn't know that, huh? Aren't you glad you tuned in now? Say yes, please say yes, please. Next up, true or false is this. I think I've been doing too many true or false shows on this network. Don't you think, folks? Tell me the truth. Tell me the truth. True or false? Lima is the capital of Brazil. True or false? Lima is the capital of Brazil. I think you might know the answer to that one. And the answer to that one, of course, is false. Lima is the capital of what South American country? Starts with a P. I know you know it. It's Peru. Peru. True or false? Mexico borders 4 countries. Mexico borders 4 countries. What do you think about that one? That happens to be false, and here's why. Mexico shares its border with not 4, but 3 countries. Do you know what they are? Think about it. What 3 countries would Mexico share borders with? I bet you know one of them. USA. I'm terrible with charades. Don't ask me to ever play charades with you. I'll embarrass the heck out of you. But one of the 3, of course, is the USA. The other 2 countries that happen to share their borders with Mexico are Belize and Guatemala. Next up is this for you. True or false? Jack Daniel's whiskey is distilled in Tennessee. Any whiskey fans out there? Because if there are, you would probably know the answer to this question. But if you don't, true or false, Jack Daniel's whiskey is distilled in Tennessee. The answer to that one happens to be an astounding, absolutely amazing true. Jack Daniel's Distillery is located in Lynchburg, Tennessee. It is the top selling American whiskey in the world and has been owned by the Brown-Forman Corporation since 1956. 1956 was a very, very good year, but I'm not going to tell you why. But it has something to do with Next up, true or false? An octopus does not have 1, does not have 2, but an octopus has 3 hearts. True or false? An octopus has 3 hearts? That's actually true. Octopuses do have 3 hearts. 1 pumps blood around the body. The other 2 pump blood to the gills. Next up is this, true or false? Dentrophobia is the fear of dandruff. True or false? Dentrophobia is the fear of dandruff. Actually, something I would never really need to worry about. Can't imagine why, but is what I just said true or false? I will be kind, and I will give you a moment to think about it. The answer to that question happens to be false. Dentrophobia is the fear of trees and the fear of being struck by a falling tree. Wow. Next up is this. Dr. No was the first James Bond film. True or false? Dr. No was the first James Bond film. That happens to be true. Dr. No, which featured the one and only Sean Connery as the one and only James Bond, was the first film in the 007 franchise. Next, true or false goes like this. Addis Ababa is the capital of Ethiopia. Addis Ababa is the capital of Ethiopia. True or false? True or false? What do you think? That happens to be true. Since the late 19th century, Addis Ababa has served as Ethiopia's capital. I would love to see it one day, actually. Next up is this. True or false, the Dead Sea is shark infested. True or false, the Dead Sea is shark infested? What do you think about that one? True? What do you think about that one? False? Well, here is the much awaited answer. That happens to be false. You probably knew the answer to that one. There is no life whatsoever in the Dead Sea. Why? Because there is way too much salt, and given that fact, nothing can live in it. Where is the Dead Sea? Do you know? The Dead Sea is in the Middle East, bordered by Jordan and Israel. True or false, a Manx cat has a tail. A Manx cat has a tail. That happens to be false. Due to a gene mutation, Manx cats don't have a tail. In 2013, one gene was shown to have 4 possible mutations that can lead to a tailless Manx cat. Next up is this, and speaking of what's up, we have 2 more questions that remain in this edition of True or False. Hey, don't be upset. Don't be upset that there are only 2 left. We will be back next week with more, or there are tons behind this episode that have been posted on the station in previous weeks of True and False. But here are the last 2 for this edition. The second to last goes like this. True or false, tuberculosis was also known as consumption. True or false, tuberculosis was also known as consumption. That happens to be true. Consumption was an old and common term for the wasting away of the body, particularly from pulmonary tuberculosis. Last and final true or false question for this edition goes like this. True or false, U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt served 3 terms in office. True or false, U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt served 3 terms in office for the last and final time in this stunningly amazing episode of True or False. Is that true or false? What do you think? That happens to be false. Roosevelt was actually elected for a 4th term, and the date was November 7th, 1944, but unfortunately, he passed away a few months later. And with that, I will take my leave of you now, because there's a very good reason. This is it. There's no more. This episode of True or False comes to a crashing close. And with that said, this has been your Live Life Well TV host, Robert Landau. Thank you for tuning in. God bless.